All right, welcome everyone. As people are coming in, I will let them in.
I like the moon.
It's a different kind of moon.
I know, I like that one.
And there's a plane flying in a tiny little plane in front of the moon.
Yes, there is.
But I wouldn't know what a plane is anymore these days.
No,
Oh my
I wouldn't.
God. Lisa, you are unbelievable. The look on Jaffe's face through that was amazing.
There was only love on my face.
Yeah, Lisa, he even dressed up for you today. This is the first time I've seen a collar on you. Well, one time you were going somewhere and you had to have a collar on, but this is the first time you dressed up for the guest.
Job interview.
Job interview.
You're hired. It's all good.
Oh, thanks for a great show, Lisa. It was so interesting to hear your story. I remember reading a book in 1978 when it first came out. It had a title like Snapping, Radical Personality Transformation in America. And at the time, it was all about cults in the 70s and how people were affected and underwent, tremendous changes in a very short period of time. And how psychologists were trying to figure that out. I just looked it up on Amazon. There's a 2011 second edition of that book. But I was fascinated by it, having grown up in a Baptist church and having a lot in common actually with the Moonies, and then having been in various organizations, campus organizations in college that had this effect on people to some extent. And then seeing our politics now morph more toward kind of cultishness. And that's one of the things I'm hoping we can get your opinion on, in our after show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Should I answer that now?
Yes.
Is that what I'm here to do? Yes. So yes. Religion, cult, where's the line? Clearly. So there's two models that I know about cults, and I will go to the politics. So one is called the BITE model. They control your behavior, information, thinking, and emotions, right? So what I was allowed to do, and different cults are different about this, but the information you receive and how you receive information, allowed to think. Again, I wasn't allowed to miss my mom. I wasn't allowed to question what you're allowed to feel. That makes it a cult, right? And I also saw recently by the psychologist who said everyone except for sociopaths and those with great psychosis is susceptible at some point. It's just bad luck at the wrong place at the wrong time. But he said it's the cultic relationship, cultic process, and cultic behavior. When those three intersect, it's a cult. So are the political parties cult? No. Is there cult-like behavior? In my opinion, yes. Is there cult-like belief? Absolutely. So cult-like belief is, all right, leave it out of it. Let's go politics aside. Cult-like belief is when someone says the sky is blue, you're like, okay. And then tomorrow they say the sky is green, and you're like, okay. And then the third day they say the sky is orange with yellow polka dots. It's okay, right? So I grew up in a church where it was absolutely puritanical as far as I knew. And only recently I've learned that one, I believe it was founded as a sex cult, but also, a kid I knew growing up was Moon's illegitimate child. But when this came out, all Moon had to say was dispensational, right? I had to have sex with other women in order to restore what Eve did. And so everyone's like, okay, it's true. I know, well, I'm not allowed to have sex and have a kid out of wedlock, but the Messiah father could, because that's what God needed him to do. God needed him to sleep around in order for everything to be okay. So you can believe anything, and that is what I see in our politics. There's definitely cult-like leadership, narcissistic leadership in some places, and definitely cult-like behavior and following. If you say it's not true, I'll believe you. If you say the election was rigged, I believe you it's rigged, even if there's no proof, And there's no proof because people have rigged it.
So
Get out of that loop. You can't get out of that loop.
Let me paraphrase, Tom. What she's saying is hypocrisy. That is the sign. And of course, clearly I'm being a little irreverent about it, but it happens on both sides. But it's just, it was interesting. You did encounter that, right, Lisa? Which is, hey, listen, I know I said it, but I'm different, or I'm better, or I'm special, or I'm the Messiah. Rules don't apply to me.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say a connection. You've shown me a connection I've never seen before. I've been a longtime reader of Mary Shelley's short novel, Frankenstein. And I've thought a lot about how it applies to people in their lives, how it applies to the tech world, how it applies to politics. I had never thought before, though, Reverend Moon was Victor Frankenstein. And with his own motivations and his own greatness in mind, he created a monster he couldn't control that then went out and harmed other people. It's an image we see playing out in every sector of life throughout history.
I almost agree with you. I would say that when I was interviewed, I was on the Megyn Kelly show back when there was a Megyn Kelly show, and they interviewed me for the backstory, and they said, do you think Moon believed he was the Messiah? And I said, hell yeah. I think if enough people bow to you, you believe you're the Messiah. Do I know that he believed it when he started? I'm not sure. Where I differ with what you said is, yes, Frankenstein went out and destroyed the world, and yes, cults destroy the world, but Moon never thought.
Well, neither did Victor Frankenstein. The scientist Victor Frankenstein, all he wanted to do was do something great. He wanted to do something great that would make his fame and name forever. And so he thought, well, the way to do it is to create life from non-life, because no scientist has ever done that before. So he had what he thought was the best of motivations in mind. He didn't realize, though, the law of unintended consequences, that he was going to create a force that he didn't have control over. And it would then go to do things that he never intended in the first place. It was leaving nothing but wrecked lives behind. To read the book, to read Shelley's book, which she wrote when she was 18 years old, just truly amazing. But she was surrounded by charismatic cult-like figures. Her dad was really popular. Her mother was the first feminist philosopher, and famous people would visit their house all the time. So they were surrounded by famous people, and everybody was sort of living in this aura of greatness and wanting to be even greater. And Mary was the one person who backed up and said, wait a minute, there are some possibly harmful consequences here that nobody's really thinking about. And Lord Byron left a wake of broken hearts behind him and broken lives, and so did Percy Shelley, her boyfriend and later husband. And it's a fascinating story. So if you haven't plunged into that book in a while, I just discovered it through my son reading it in middle school, and probably I've read it 15 times now, and it's an amazing analysis.
So Tom, could I make a suggestion that there's a really good analogy between that and Facebook and social media?
Definitely.
I mean, you know, just the way you described it, one person trying to create something to do better. Like, I just read the article in the Times this morning that I'm forgetting his name, the really great writer wrote, where he got the logins of two people to see what they were seeing, because one of the problems with Facebook is we don't know what's in everybody's feed. And he really spent 3 weeks logged in with them, seeing what was being thrown at them and how divisive it was.
Wow.
When both of these people, it's in the Times today, and I'll try to get the link and put it in the chat, but it's so powerful, because to your point about creating something for good, the one gentleman joined he's 61, to see his old high school friends, and the other woman joined for another reason. And they got polluted by this thing, and it turned into something very different.
That's interesting. And
I actually think your analogy of Frankenstein is less tied into a cult than in somebody thinking they're above the law and, you know, creating life out of unanimated flesh, and him creating social out of bits and bytes, and it's turned into something different.
Well, it's interesting how in small ways, a lot of us create monsters in our lives we can't control. The career gets out of hand and it ruins the family, or it breaks up friendships, or whatever. I even read last week, the guy who invented the concept of gross domestic product, GDP, on which, you know, countries analyze, how are we doing? Are we doing well? Are we doing badly? He said, I'm afraid I unleashed a monster on the world that I couldn't control. This guy said about a concept of gross domestic. He believes that the concept leaves so much out about what makes life worth living, then societies have this improper, unhealthy understanding of themselves based on this idea of GDP. I mean, Lisa, your experience in a cult situation, although other situations aren't exactly like it, and many other situations are only remotely analogous to it, we see how one person being larger than life can have harmful effects never originally intended in the lives of so many other people. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, the only thing, so first of all, I'm going to say, I'm going to forget the country, but there's a country that measures the gross happiness.
Bhutan.
It is Bhutan, right? Yeah, like that's what we should be measuring, right? How are we doing? Are we thriving? But the only way I'm going to push back on you is I don't think that Moon thought there were disastrous results, and I think this is exactly what he intended. He exactly intended, whether you believe that he believed he was the Messiah or whether you believe he just was in it. When he died, he had 68 billion, I think dollars. The wealthiest religious leader ever. It is a money producing machine. So, but I think he did exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to do more, but
yeah, no, he didn't understand that there were disastrous consequences, and nor did Victor Frankenstein for a long time. He didn't know his monster was out killing people. There are disanalogies in the story for sure, but I mean, so many people with good intentions, with even the best of intentions, can launch into the world processes. And that's a cool thing to think about. Every action, it's one of the reasons Obama was so careful about international interventions, or at least tried to be, because whenever we launch an action into a process, we never know exactly, the three things you were talking about: creativity, certainty, purpose, and community. We want to be certain about the consequences of our actions, but we never can be. Nope. And so it pays to first do no harm, and to be measured and to be modest. And yeah, a lot of these people who are bigger than life, like Zuckerberg, like Reverend Moon, they launch into the world big actions without intending the negative consequences they have. And sometimes, like Zuckerberg, they kind of emotionally run away because Zuckerberg has not been doing his best work in trying to contain,
So Tom, that's a really good point. If you look at Bill Gates as the example, when he was standing atop the tech world, everyone went after him for not giving money away. Yeah. But when he was ready, he was able to change that perception by, as a humble leader, taking all of that money he had to try to fix bigger problems. Absolutely. And I wonder, and I'm going to say something a little bit controversial, I wonder if it'll take too long for Zuckerberg to mature and the damage that will be wreaked by Facebook, which I believe it is seriously damaging our society. I put the article in the chat for everybody.
Oh, good, thanks.
For him to figure out that he should be doing for good and not for...
Well, there's also the element of power, and I think Lisa even touched on this. When you are surrounded by people that reinforce a narrative and how great you are, whether it's the CEO, whether it's the chairman of General Electric, whether it's the president of the United States, or whether it's the leader of the Unification Church, you lose that perspective, and even if you don't, you get so drunk and lost and obsessed on that power that I think there's a perspective that has been lost. I say this in context of where is Zuckerberg right now? Is he just the young, idealistic buck saying, no, everyone should have that, or at what point did he move from that to become the evil genius or something worse? I don't know.
No.
I don't, I think one of the things you said was interesting, Tom, and I'll stop a sec, is that I don't think it needs to be so grandiose. I think people make monsters in their own heads out of lots of things. Yeah. And one of the things I thought was so important to have Lisa on the show is, I had been doing lots of jobs and running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it wasn't until sitting down with Lisa that I was able to slow down for a second. The few times we talked, and we're both ADHD, DDD, so it was pretty funny, the two of us sitting in my office. And the tools she used for me to take a moment, and she did an amazing 360 with my whole team that I had one done like 12 years before, but the science has come so much farther. And the way she was able to sit with me and say, well, you think you're doing this and they think you're doing this, such a strong and impactful thing on my evolution as trying to be a leader. Because I think, like she said, you're a recovering cultist. I think we're all recovering leaders. I think we're all struggling to be a leader every day and learning how to do this. And now we had 2020, which could be the most crazy fucked up year of all time. And I think that's pushed everybody to the limit. You know, somebody said to me, how's it going with your startup? I said, thank God I'm 57, 58. You forgot my birthday, Jeffy. It was 2 Saturdays ago. Thank God I'm 58 and I've done 7 of these, because if I was 24,
I wish
my
you.
first time, I would have just flamed out.
Yeah.
It's insane trying to run a company in this.
Oh yeah.
I by the way, I resent that, because if you check your Facebook or your LinkedIn, however we connected, A, you'll see the message from me, and B, I mentioned your name on air. I remember.
All right,
I did.
I take it back, Jeffy. I've given up on Facebook. I've gone on. I think I gave up on April 1st of 2017 when I walked out of WPP. I've gone on for my birthday in 17, 18, 19, and 20, and maybe 1 or 2 other times. And I go on the day of my birthday, the day after, and I say thank you to everybody. And I put a note every time saying, look, I'm not here. It's just me. But you know what? I'm still open for the connection. My phone number hasn't changed. My email hasn't changed. I'd love to chat with everybody in the real world. And I just don't believe it's real. So I just don't go there.
As long as you didn't leave Facebook to go to Parler, we're fine.
I just read an article today that the reason the Mercers have been quiet is those fuckers are funding Parler. I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh, so horrific.
Yeah, I love it when you're on, Richie, because this show becomes more linguistically similar to Joe Rogan's show.
It becomes,
Oh, that's cold.
With the number of F-bombs.
It's French speaking. That's what we learned from Max Lenderman yesterday.
Right.
Lisa, I said it on the show, but it really just, it's marinating inside me. The concept of individuality and individualism this is the core, this is the kernel of where cult meets culture, where a real cult meets the concept of a corporate culture, or in this case, the idea of leadership. And there are 2 aspects. One is when the leader becomes the sun, the stars, the moon, and it's all about the leader, whether it is the supreme leader, North Korea, or whether it's, which of course has a connection to moon, or whether it becomes a government official, whether it becomes, quite frankly, I would say the magnetic leader of a company, right? Whether it's an Elon Musk, or we look at or Richard Branson, we look at few and far between these visionary leaders. But then when you go down and you put the leader aside, is the community really a powerful collective of individuals that have things in common, that come together because of that commonality, but ultimately produce something where the whole is greater than some of its parts, but they never lose their individuality in that process? In fact, if it wasn't for that diversity, that tapestry, you wouldn't get the result. It seems like that to me is the code. The code is how, and I'm sure you do it with a guy like Richie, right? Which is, how do you create a strong, confident, but also benevolent leader that can lead when he or she needs to, but also allow everyone around them to rise, to shine, and to almost co-lead.
Wow. I don't even know where to go with that. So Richie, how did I do that? So no, I think what you said, there's a lot there that you said, right? I very carefully I've heard people say this organization, this culture is so big, it's like a cult. It's not a cult, right? So I'm pretty be cut and dried on what is and isn't in some ways. And I think what's different in a cult is that we actually lose that individuality, right? So you become part of the whole, but you lose your separateness as much, even though you still have it, obviously, but you lose it as much as possible because you try and conform to whatever that whole is or whatever it's supposed to be. I do think a couple of things more. I do think that, like, when I look back at my church, right, at my cult, right, so many members joined for really good reasons. As much as it was a lie, right? Watch Nixium, watch the vow about Nixium, which I'm making my husband watch now. Like, watch that. It's, you know, people believed in these beautiful things Keith Raniere was saying. People believed in what Moon was saying and what the leaders were saying about creating a better world and changing and one unified family of man and all of that. So there's a lot of good, and then you lose yourself absolutely in it. So leadership to switch is completely the opposite. It's about, tell me where I haven't said this to you, Richie, right? It's about, who am I? What's going on inside me? What's helping? What's hurting? How do I show up as my best? How do I recognize all the stories I'm making up in my head and call them out as not real and figure out what is real and what's not real? And how do I connect with you? Who are you? And let you show up as your best, right? So it's about authenticity. It's about, I do use love in the corporate world. I'm one of those weird coaches who uses that 4-letter word. It's about connecting with people, and it's about, standing strong and having an opinion and being, like Richie, being yourself, but also realizing when, like, there's me and there's that evil twin side of me when I'm too much of myself, and when do I kind of dial that part down? So a lot of different thoughts to what you said there.
I get a lot out of what you've been talking about, and Richie as well, and always Tom. But the thing that I come back to, that you remind me of, that feels right in my gut, is that the great leaders have been willing to follow and have been willing to allow their teammates to be leaders. Mm-hmm. And thus the path that the leader starts out on changes course along the way by individual powers of their own, without rebut from the leader. The leader accepts being a teammate, and the leader accepts the role of being a manager more than a leader in that following aspect. The cults seem to be on a path that's predetermined by the leader and has no byways. And that's when I know, at least that's when I've seen, that I'm out. When this leader of mine, and it can be in an agency, it can be at a synagogue or church, when I get the feeling that this is the way, I'm out.
As soon as anybody says to me, this is the way, I'm like, yeah, no, right? Because the first thing I'll say is, there's very few things I know for certain. And I could be really, really wrong about a lot of what I say. Because, we don't know. We don't know. There's little certainty in the world.
In marketing, in branding, and advertising, maybe, this is like the one good thing that has come out of advertising and in the creative process. It's all about changing along the way. Mm-hmm. And in so many aspects of life, it's like that too. I'm sure in the military, from which one of these rules comes of following and leading, it was from a SEAL team leadership thing I was in. The pathway to that goal is constantly changing by the group's determination, and therefore the leader has to respect each of them for being their own leaders. And so the group as a whole makes its own path. It's not predetermined.
Yeah. That's when we work with leadership teams and it gets really creative. That's, I can't tell you how it happens. It's like a science and an art and a little bit of, flavored Jello or something, little sprinkling in from Willy Wonka. I don't know. And all of a sudden you have something that's bigger and better than just me or just you. Yeah.
It sounds like you have fun releasing that in a group.
That's the one thing I like. It's really funny. My business partner and I, we both swore we'd get out of this business before it went virtual. So, oh well. But the one thing that I haven't yet figured out how to do is one of my skills, right, is to be able to read a room and feel all that energy and emotions and underlying stuff. I love that. I literally end up lying on the floor envisioning things. If Richie knows me, he can probably think that to be very true. I haven't yet figured out how to do that virtually. I'm really working on it. Can't see everybody's faces well enough. But yeah, I love getting people together to have hard conversations and emotional conversations, and to realize the lies they're making up and realize the beauty that they can create when they join together instead of fight against each other. So yeah, I feel I'm very lucky. I love the work I do. When I'm working, I never want to stop. And when I'm not working, I never want to start. So I'm either certifiable or I figured it out. I don't know which. But, yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things was WPP liked her so much they assigned her to a lot of people. And I could always tell somebody else that was under the coaching of Lisa. It's like, because, Jan, as you know, I mean, WPP was a fucking dog eat dog. Martin believed everybody should just, rip each other to shreds to be the winner. And, I had grown up at MTV and at Turner, which was a tough place, but we were tough for the collective good. And I was always shocked by WPP. It was tough to see who would win dinner or Martin's approval, which I just didn't really care about because I had got acquired and I was waiting to get out. But it was always funny because I could tell who else Lisa coached, because they were all like me. They were like really kind of hard charging people. They were like, yeah, this is kind of silly. It was great because, I guess I had learned that working for Ted and kind of, I'll be honest, I kind of learned that working at News Corp, but at WPP, I was just flummoxed by this culture that I felt was just insane. And it was great that I could find other people that Lisa had influence who could say, yeah, this is a little silly here. We can be a servant leader and we could be part of a team and not rip each other apart. Because that was what I was struggling with. It was, I'd never been on the agency side, Jan. I'd never been in that, it still shocks me that it's such a different kind of attitude and world than the other side of the table, and I still don't understand it, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, listen, it's Lisa mentioned that when Moon died, he had how much was it? 68 billion.
I think so, yeah. I mean, more money than any religious leader ever had. Yes.
So that's what happens when you go that direction, Richie. You the real cult leader is is the mighty dollar, and it's all about money. I mean, there's a bit of an interesting common thread. Now, when we talk about servant leadership and we talk about conscious capitalism and we talk about self-love, that's a different conversation. That's a conversation that says, wait, and GDP, right? Tom talking about the Frankenstein monster that is GDP. Maybe our metrics and our measurements and our indices need a little bit of a refresher or a little bit of a realignment to be able to determine. And WPP, what did it become? And other companies run by bean counters, not run by human beings or with humanity driving growth, evolution, but in fact, inanimate dollars and cents and P&L.
Well, you could ask that question about Zuckerberg. I mean, I think Tom said it earlier. I don't know. Is a Frankenstein? I think Frankenstein is definitely different from a cult, but is a Frankenstein different in the I built something that I thought would be good, and it's just a cautionary tale of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Tom, you're the philosopher, dude.
Well, Richie, actually, I've been working on a book for 10 years called The Frankenstein Factor, where I use Gilgamesh and Beowulf and the Iliad and the Odyssey and Sophocles, and I kind of range through history for all these insights about motives, methods, and means. Their importance in life, because there's all this great advice in the business world that often seems to go nowhere. And it's because of what Lisa deals with, I'm guessing all the time, inner blockages that people have for taking that great advice. Maybe they have inappropriate motives. Maybe they have habits that involve them in inappropriate methods. So I isolate motives, means, and methods as let's examine this, because throughout history, we've got, both from great literature and from world history itself, we've got great, smart, talented people doing stupid things. and creating things that blow up in their faces, right? And why? Why do so many smart people do so many stupid things? It's a question that's bothered me for a long time. So I've been sort of working on it. And Mary did another book later on called The Last Man. It's about a virus in the 21st century that wipes out everybody. And it was published in 1831. Hardly anybody knows about this. And it's, some people say it's, whether that or Frankenstein is the first science fiction novel. But The Last Man, it's about a plague, it's about a pandemic, but it's about the same kind of characters that get your attention in her book, Frankenstein. And people don't know this. Even people who read Frankenstein when they were in middle school, they don't remember the book is told by a sea captain named Captain Walton, who's just as big an egomaniac as Victor Frankenstein and wants to be famous. He wants to find a route, a navigation route that will make him famous for the rest of his life. Frankenstein just wants to be great and famous and powerful. He doesn't want to do any damage to anybody, but you know.
If I remember right, Tom, Frankenstein ends with a man at the South or North Pole by himself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And he ends up dying.
Good at this.
Chasing his monster and trying to get to stop his monster. He ends up dying. So we're into a lot of other things. But Lisa, I just wanted to say this trivial thing to you so that you can know how much good you do in the world by even a casual remark. What you said about not being able to read people's faces well enough in these tiny little squares on the screen. I need to buy a new computer because I'm using my son's that I inherited from him 15 years ago. Fortunately, he's a filmmaker, so he would have the super top of the line 15 years ago. But I've got to get a new computer. And because of what you just said, I realized for the first time, I need a computer with a really big screen.
Probably what I need too.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you a few best practices. One is, yes, a big screen helps. Two is the position of the camera. So right now, you know, my camera is right above my laptop. So sometimes what will happen is you'll be looking at the camera, but you're not actually making eye contact with the person. A third thing is gallery view. So I think that helps, you know, with gallery view, when you can actually see everyone at the same time, you kind of feel like you're in a room right now, you know. So I can see there are 9 people, including me, on screen right now. And, you know, and Hades waving to me. Another thing I think is breakout rooms and its partner in crime, alcohol. Okay, a little bit of alcohol, but breakout rooms are important because, you know, it's funny, you know, Lisa, you said to me, I mean, you said in your fun facts that one of the things that gets you the most nervous is when you're like in with your 6th graders. Well, you know, I've keynoted in front of thousands of people. I don't get nervous, but I am like a blithering idiot when I'm on like a Zoom call with 15 or 20 people, and it's like a conference call when you don't know when to chime in or pipe in or speak. I hate that. And so I think the ability to have breakout rooms now, I know it sounds like a silly thing, but reducing to, you know, the number of people that you can count on 2 hands helps to keep that intimacy.
Yes.
So can I give you a really good total cheat for your Zoom? So I actually, Tom, I'll talk to you later. I've got an external monitor up here. So when I was doing the show, I was talking to the thing. Now I've got the screen, the 9 people down here, but it's a really famous guy named Brad Feld, who's a really famous VC out of Foundry, out of Colorado. And he's had a very long struggle with depression, and he's been very open about it. I think he's written a book, he writes blogs about it. And he said something about a month ago, Jaffe, that actually can help you a lot with that. There's a hack with Zoom. If you hover over your picture, if you put your mouse over your picture, you'll see in the top right corner 3 little dots.
Yeah.
It'll say mute and 3 little dots. If you click on that, it'll say hide self view. If you click on that, now I do that. I see the 9 of you and I don't see me. And he wrote an article about a psychiatrist and a social scientist that he worked with. If your view is on the screen, subconsciously, you're looking at that picture and saying, well, what am I doing? Did I blink? Did I rub my nose? Did I do that? and you can't focus on the Zoom. And in the month that I have been hiding the self view, my anxiety on Zoom calls has gone way down, because there is science of the fact that if you see, I see the 9 of you, if you see your picture in that 9, you're going to subconsciously be focusing on it, and you're going to be stressed by that.
Can I actually add to that? I know
And it's my son, the actor, has now jumped in from my.
Oh, I don't mean to like jump in on this. I
Hello,
understand.
young Glassberg.
Hello. So I'm a musical theater major at the University of Miami, right? And so almost all of my day when I have an online class that day is I have to go up and I have to perform a scene that I've rehearsed over Zoom. And I have to basically do this. I don't have the luxury of having a separate webcam. I just have to look at my computer webcam on my laptop. So for me, it makes it so much easier and gets me way out of my head if I just turn off my self view and I just have my scene partner on screen. So that way I don't have to look at myself. Oh God, I'm fidgeting with my hair there. I scratched my nose. That looks weird. Why am I adjusting my shirt so much? I don't think about the tiny little things that don't matter. Yeah. And I can actually focus on what I need from my partner.
And you can think about the big things like hugging his papa because he's home.
Yes, that one right now is especially.
That is good. Hug away.
Exactly.
Well, that's great advice, but I'm so sad because my photo here is my favorite one.
Well,
that's your problem.
That's the philosopher who just said
separate
that.
problem.
You know what it also does? What it also does is increase the real estate.
Yes.
For everybody
Dan's
else.
exactly right. Yep, you can get more on the screen, but I found it was a phenomenal. There's science and a lot behind it that it does lower your anxiety, Jeffy.
Hey, thank you to Glassberg for us, man. That was good.
Hey, Tom, you said you would let me speak when I want to speak. Where are you? Can you hear me?
I'm going to mute myself.
All right, Heidi, you have the conch.
No. Tom told me that he would help me get my hand up and my voice in when I needed to chat a little while ago. So not stopping him from speaking, to help me pipe up.
No, I've just figured out how to mute Tom, so that helps my anxiety.
No, Tom was going to help me against all of you. Firstly, I just wanted to say thanks for the tip about hiding the self view, because I didn't know you could do that, and it actually irritates me. So now I know how to do it. But actually, it was the same point that I wanted to make to Lisa, but I was going to do it in a voice way instead of through a visual that you're going to get. But my whole feeling from you is all about heart, your hand touching your heart. I've taken that completely in with me. Watching you do that, I feel like walking around doing that to me. And it's like, if you can do that to you after everything you've been through, I can do that to me, and everyone else can do that to them. So I wanted to give you that message by voice, even if you're not getting the feeling through Zoom. So that's the message I want to give you. You completely touched my heart and showed me that we can get through anything that we're faced with and come out the other side, as you say, better for it, that the sky is bluer because you've been deeper down there and the sky is now bluer and the sun is shining more brightly. So I just want to thank you for the gift of the authenticity of you, the sharing of the story, the struggle, the honesty in your struggle, and how you have worked through that and worked inward and found self-love through whatever you've been faced with. So thank you.
I'd like to sign my name on that card that Heidi just.
Right.
Yeah, me too. I'm signing it right now. I'm taking notes.
Thank you. If one person learns to walk around with their hand on their heart, I skied into a tree in January. I wouldn't recommend it, and I broke my head and my heart because I'm whatever, my sternum. And I literally, my kid goes, "Well, now you have an excuse to have your hand on your heart all day long." I'm like, "Yeah, now I have another excuse. I got to hold it together." But I do. I walk around like this all the time, and it's not mine. It's from Tara Brach, but it is the most soothing thing, right? And I, as Richie knows, I believe in whatever silly little thing works to make it easier for us. And what Richie went, first of all, I love seeing your kid, yay. And second of all, I love, like, you just have this, like, okay, our brain, we think our brain controls us, and it does, but we have control over our brain. I can actually pick my brain up and think something else. I can turn off my self video and focus better. I can walk with my hand on my heart and have compassion when I go into whatever I'm going into. So
And the one last thing,
And that's what I
Heidi,
wanted to say with, sorry.
is no, Heidi.
What I wanted to
The three dots are hides you, but if you want to put it back, you hover over anybody else's tile, and the three dots it says restore. Sorry, I just want to. I didn't want you to get lost in there. Go ahead, Heidi. I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
No problem. I've got my daughter waiting to go through a science for tomorrow's exam, so it's quite late here. I'm in South Africa. So and the other thing that I wanted to say is exactly that, with compassion. So the word compassion also came through very strongly. So I love that you said that. So I just wanted to resonate that back to you, with compassion. Thank you so much. I'm holding my phone in my hand, so I can't give you a two hands together back. So I'll give you the one hand back and one hand on my phone, and I'm running off to do last minute exam testing. And fantastic to listen to you and hear your story. And thank you for sharing. And thanks, Joe, for the show.
You're welcome.
Again.
Glad to see you, Heidi.
I can't see you, Tom. I've only got 4 people on my phone screen.
Swipe.
You got rid of me completely. Huh?
I have. I'm liberated through no more self-view, and I didn't even realize the whole time. That's the narcissist in me. Probably just tends to look at yourself the whole time, but
Yeah,
it's.
We'll see when you start picking your nose or something, Joseph. We'll ask you to get it back.
Oh, I'm
Anyway,
afraid. I'm
gonna
sitting on
say
my hands
goodbye.
right
I
now.
need
I'm
to
so
run.
afraid. All right, bye, Heidi.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Heidi.
You guys will notice, by the way, that I've that because of Lisa's amazing ness and awesomeness, we have bought extra time on the Zoom after show. We're going to a full hour today, as long as Lisa will tolerate us. We're going to an hour. It's Thanksgiving week. Where else I gotta be?
Seriously. So I have a trick that I've shown some of you before, as far as the solving that problem of connecting with people. And I don't know if I can show this really well in the picture or not. Let's find the picture. I actually put my webcam in front of, on a post in front. Where's the picture? There it is.
Yeah.
So it's on this tall post, and I put my webcam on top of that. And then I just set it on the table in front of my monitor, about 6 inches, 8 inches in front. Oops, that's not the one I wanted to show you, this one. And then I line the speaker, whoever's speaking, I line their eyes up. I don't know, there you go. So there's Joseph. And I line his eyes up underneath, just above the camera. So I can be looking at him and almost literally looking in the camera. And I find that it just makes it a closer connection. The worst is when people go and mount their web browser way the heck over here. So they're talking like this, but their camera's over here, and there's
that's not good.
That disconnect is just, your body just, internalizes it. It's like, I can't connect with that person at all.
Yeah.
So, and I work with a lot of political candidates, and the first thing I say is, the camera is who you're talking to. That is the person that you're talking to.
So
connect with that lens, and you're connecting as far as the other person feels anyway. They feel like, you're looking right at them. And
so here's a creative anomaly to that. In some of the best documentaries, the interviews occur with the interviewee.
Yeah, that's different though.
Looking not into camera, and it creates more for I don't know why psychologically, but it gives you, I think, the sense of place better.
Yeah, you're in that space with them.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like.
They're not selling you. There's another human being that they're talking to, and you buy that.
Right. Yep. Ken Burns lived down the road from me, and what an amazing artist he is with film. And my niece lived with me while she did an internship with Ken Burns, and I learned a lot from and from iMovie.
Is this the same? Is this the same Ken Burns from my iMovie?
Well, same Ken Burns that makes all the documentaries.
No, that was a joke, Bob.
Okay,
like when you're in iMovie, you have crop,
Oh, yeah.
Zoom, and then Ken Burns, which
Right.
is like
It is.
a start end. That's funny.
That is the
Yeah,
Ken
he's
Burns
famous for that.
effect. It's
Just
named
Steve?
after
jokes
Ken
he
Burns.
wants
Yes.
to stand up, you know, and
Does he get paid royalties for that?
Ask
Oh, that's a good question. I would if I was him.
I think he
Okay.
I
has,
think so.
I think he
to
has
get back to Lisa, I wanted to ask one more question, and then I'll be quiet.
No,
I'll be
you won't.
remiss. Yeah, look, everybody laughs. What's the number one hang up with the leadership people you deal with the executives you deal with, the people in the world of work that you coach? Is there a number one problem? Is there a most common thing that you have to help people with?
That's an interesting question.
Because I'm a consultant, I'm going to give you a multi-layered answer.
Okay.
And an acronym.
Oh God,
And
I can do acronyms. I don't know if I can do them off the top of my head, so give me a minute. But fair. So it is still self-love, right? Because so many people, when they get to that level of leadership, they think they're supposed to know the answer. They think they're supposed to do it. They think they're supposed to solve it. They think that that they can't show any weaknesses or whatever. So that huge, again, dose of self-compassion and the ability, right, Richie, to step back and be like, I don't have to be the guy. I don't have to be the media guy, right? I can not push as hard as I'm used to pushing. I would say with that self-love is self-care. I have clients, I can find this client who the first time I met him, I said, you just need to sleep. And I have a couple clients where I say is you just need to sleep. You need to sleep. It'll all be easier if you sleep, right? Take care of yourself, sleep, meditate, take breaks, walk around the block. We push ourselves so hard. And especially in America, in the East Coast where I generally work, right? We're driven, we're pushing, we think we have to do more, we're expected to do more, we're always on, our emails are going to nonstop. We need to step back and take a break. And honestly, I promise you, if you take a nap or you meditate or you walk around the block or you play with your kid or your dog or whatever, you're going to show up better than you were before.
Yeah.
That's really a lot of my, and the third one is, again, that evil twin, right? So I tell a story. I had a client many years ago. I'm allowed to tell the story. First time I'm working with her, I'm debriefing a 360, and behind her on a shelf are two Barbie dolls, one that looks just like her and one that looks just like her, but the hair's all messed up and marker all over the face and the clothes are ripped. And of course, being me, I say, before we start, what is that? She says, that's me and that's my evil twin. My team gave this to me because, by the way, she has a huge temper. People would follow her over hot coals. They adore her. She's amazing. And she has a huge temper. So she says, because my team can come in and they can say, you know what, she's here now. We'll come back later. Or my team can come in and I can say, if Citigroup's not going to crash, she's here now. Come back later. So would it be great if we didn't have an evil twin? Hell yeah. Do we all have one? Hell yeah. Right. And so I said to a client, a former client, I talked to actually a WPP former client yesterday, kind of help him with something. And I said, we talked many years ago about his poker face, his lack of poker face and poker mouth, he just blurts and shows. I'm like, if you never get better at it, just tell people my face does crazy things. So if my face does a crazy thing, say, whoa, are you mad at me? It might be like, no, this is my face doing crazy things. Like, we have these things we do based on lies we believe in our head, and they get in our way. And if we can just be like, I'm not perfect. My older kid knows that they can tell me anything and I will probably say the worst thing first. And I've done it multiple times, and their friends say the same thing about me. I blurt things out. But my heart will always say that I will never judge you for what you do. I'll just say the stupid thing first, right? So self-love, self-care, acknowledge that evil twin and have compassion for that evil twin. That my evil twin, they think it's saving me when I do these stupid things. And so how do I have compassion for that and let people say, at least you're being an idiot right now, kind of thing. Right, Rich, is that kind of what I did with you?
Look,
And that's called self-deprecation as well, which is another important self.
I mean, part of what Lisa did that was so important was when she started working with me, I had been told this a number of times by a number of people. And part of it is she allowed me to understand it and accept it. And sometimes I would do it right and I would say, that's my this me and that's my that me. But a lot of times you fall into the old habits. And she helped me understand how to shed the old habits. And frankly, maybe that was just because of maturity, and I've been running so hard for so long. And maybe because I was receptive to hear it then. Maybe some people hear it younger. Maybe some people hear it older. I don't know. But one of the things that I think is so powerful about Lisa, and I wish more, and I'm sure there's other great executive coaches that do this, is be able to let me understand what my shortcomings are and where my strengths are, and to say, hey, I need help with some of these weaknesses over here. I'm okay with this, but I got to pull it back a little because it scares you. I mean, I'm over, but it was, and I think Lisa, I had started meditating, and then, I had to have open heart surgery. And I think, I had a birth defect, and I think that changed everything. And I just wish other people could, I kind of wish I had had some of those epiphanies 10 years earlier, but then I wouldn't have been me. So, you got to do the Satchel Paige. Don't look back. I can't do anything about the past. I mean, Tommy, right? The Buddha says it all the time. I can't do anything about that. I have no idea what the next is going to be. All I have is right now. Right now.
I just had that conversation with my 89-year-old mom, and she was, she's starting to lose her memory. And so we were talking about living in the moment, which was kind of an alien concept for her. Because she goes, oh no, I just live in the past. And it is interesting that all you really have is right this very moment.
I saw a group therapy with dementia patients. I think it was on CBS Sunday Morning some time ago, but it would be easy to find. And what the segment was about was the value and the joy that comes in a dementia mind in the moment. And what the result of that understanding was to have this group of dementia patients do art, for example, create art, sculpture, because the moment that they're doing that is joyous to them. And it doesn't matter that tomorrow they don't remember it.
Right.
They live in the moment, and there could be joy in that if we, as not dementia patients, can release our need for this person to have a past and a future.
Interesting.
Wow. And I would say all we have is right now. And right now, generally, I'm okay. Yeah. Like right in this moment. Right?
You're more than okay, Lisa.
Well, thank you. But and right in this moment, I can find something that makes me smile. Or I can smile and then my brain goes, oh, I'm happy. I must be happy because I smiled, right? There's I can find joy right now if I stay right here. But if I think about that or worry about that, then I can lose that. Yeah.
Lisa, sometimes I, you want to go, Jen, or?
Go ahead. You had your thought. Go.
So sometimes in the after show, I think of a question. I think maybe I should have asked that question or differently. And the thing that just popped into my head now is, and I think I might have even made a false assumption that you weren't happy as a kid. And I guess the question would have been, were you happy during this time? There were times when you tell the story of being separated from the peers and where I think you might have been confused, but let me ask you that question. During this childhood, were you happy?
Wow, no one's actually asked that. That's a loaded question. So, I mean, I like to say I wrote a memoir and I have very few memories. My brother will say that he has all of them. But I distinctly remember when my parents split when I was young. This was before the church. And I always knew, in the weekend, if I chose to be with my mom, I wish I'd been with my dad. If I chose to be with my dad, I wish I'd been with my mom. And I remember once driving in, trying to keep the drying tears on my face so my dad could see I was crying. So, I mean, I definitely think there were moments of happiness. I definitely don't think I was overall. I mean, I have a sunny disposition and I have a lot of love in me. When I wrote the book, I decided that the good thing I got from being in the church was that I was so loving. And then I reconnected with Moon's daughter and with the two other kids I grew up with. And they were like, no, you were loving when we met you. So I think what helped me survive is my love, is my heart, is my ability to be sunny and have that disposition. But I was broken and scared and hurt a lot. And I had to be happy because of the church. I had to be happy for not living with my mom and all that. So yeah, that's a hard one. I think there was a lot of pain and fear, probably anger, but that's harder for me to touch. Obviously anger, I would have screamed for an hour. There were moments of happiness, but I think much of it was not true happiness, not safe, feeling loved. When I had kids, my only goal was that they would know they were loved. And they so know that they're loved when I said it to my kid. He's like, oh, I don't know, you love me. I mean, I know Mimi loves me and Papa loves me, but I don't know you love me, which is how much I know my kid knows he's loved. So so you're gonna got me. I'm gonna be like thinking about that one tonight. Yeah.
It's funny that as you say that, I'm reminded of a book that I have mentioned this book twice before on the after show in past episodes. And I've only read it twice. This is going to make me go back and read it a third time. The great spiritual writer Henry Nouwen wrote a book called The Wounded Healer. That's yeah, right. Now, she wrote a book too. I know, Joseph, we're promoting her book today. Henry's long gone, so he can't benefit from this plug. But The Wounded Healer, it's all about the wounds in our lives that prepare us to act as healers in the lives of others. And he was this great guy at Yale Divinity School. When I was in graduate school, I never met him, but I knew his teaching assistant, the guy who was kind of his #1 graduate student. A wonderful guy from half Turkish, half Greece, which is kind of weird. He lived in Cyprus, but look, one of mine too. He's promoting us both now, okay? But if you don't know that book, Lisa, it was a big book for me once I discovered it. It's a little book, but it was a powerful concept because I went through my own childhood wounding, which prepared me to be a more loving philosopher for my students and people ever since. So, but it's just good to see a kindred spirit who's come through the wounding and is making such a difference in the lives of other people. So
I want to add something, by the way, just a little, as I was holding the books up, and something I forgot to mention to Lisa. Lisa, I think you're going to love this. You probably know this already, but so the context of this is I'm having, in the next few weeks, I'm having Dr. Harry Kohn on the show, and he wrote a book called Heliotropic Leadership. And I noticed that your book is published is Heliotrope Books. That can't be coincidental. I mean, whether you're aware of it or even not. But the heliotropic effect is exactly, I mean, you are the embodiment of that, which is turning towards the light and growing through the light. I just thought that's just a sublime connection.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Thank you. No, I don't. Yeah. Good.
I can't believe this, but I got to jump. I got a 4 o'clock that I got to get on.
Hey,
I'm being judicious about 60 minutes. I gave you 30 extra. Here's what I want to say. Lisa, as Richie has demonstrated and as Tom has demonstrated, you are part of our family now. You're part of this community. This isn't just a host, interviewer, interviewee. We are here every day. We give each other warmth and support and sometimes free consulting. We're now apparently helping Tom research his new book, which I better write the forward for. But Lisa, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you. Richie, thank you for your kindness and generosity of sharing another piece of you with us. And I just want to say, Lisa, you can come back anytime you want. We're here pretty much every day.
Careful what you ask for. Thank you. It's been wonderful to meet all of you. Thank you, Richie. So good to see you. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
I think we should all end up with our hands to our heart and absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. And tomorrow's the big